Hi everyone, my name is Steph. This is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to talk about the last 5 non-fiction books that I've read. Now these are the non-fiction books that I've read over the last couple of months and I've just been saving them till I had enough for this video. If you're at all unfamiliar with my little last 5 series, it's where I'm grouping books that are similarly themed either by genre or by trope or some other kind of theme together and wrapping them up at the same time in an effort to stop my monthly wrap-ups from being hours long. So today we are talking about non-fiction books. The first one was Oceans by David Attenborough and Colin Butfield, and I was really excited when I heard that this book was being released last year. I actually pre-ordered it as soon as the pre-order for the audiobook went up. One, it's David Attenborough and I am just enamored with his work, and it was being narrated by David Attenborough and Colin Butfield, who he has worked with previously, and they've co-written this book, and there is also a video documentary as well that goes alongside it. I've read the book and seen the documentary and it's fantastic. As the title would suggest, it is all about the world's oceans, the importance of them. So we're looking at saltwater habitats, we're looking at the areas surrounding those habitats, how life has thrived or, you know, with human help has stopped thriving. And how it's all connected to us on Earth and why it's so important that these habitats and these environments are kept safe and are reclaimed. The most devastating thing that I think they were talking about in the book was the industrial fishing where they dredge the floors of the ocean, and hearing them talk about that and the impact of that, and then also visually seeing it in the documentary was just devastating to see how that all happens and what the impact is on the ocean floor. The whole book was just an incredible listening experience as David and Colin sort of trade off narrating different parts of the book, and just their passion for conservation and their passion for sharing their knowledge was just really clear. I absolutely love the listening experience of this. I suspect I would have really enjoyed physically reading the book just because it's of interest to me, but having it narrated by the two of them was amazing. So highly recommend that. I also read Wordslut by Montell. This is a book that looks at a feminist take on gendered language. So the title is very provocative. It's supposed to be. It's dealing with provocative language as you're reading it. It's looking at the history of words, how words have been used to gaslight or reduce the power of women throughout history, as well as, you know, ways of reclaiming language so that it doesn't have that effect anymore. As, you know, a bit of a word nerd, I loved the discussion in this, particularly around why words matter and how over time words change, their meanings change, but also the way that we use them changes and adapts and becomes something a little bit different. Like, it was just an awesome book. This would be one that I would probably eventually like to get a physical copy of. Then a kids non-fiction book that I read but was really fun was The Universal Guide to the Night Sky by Lisa Harvey Smith. This is my second Lisa Harvey Smith book, and I find her work just to be really engaging, particularly for kids who have an interest in space and astronomy. The actual layout of the book itself is fantastic. Like, it's not a light book. There's quite a lot of information in here, but it's broken up really well. And it's very much about encouraging kids and adults to look up at the night sky, to engage with it, to know what's up there when you're looking at it. There are tips in here for starting your stargazing kit, for what to look for resources online that can help you identify what it is that you're seeing in the sky. Like, it is a really, really wonderful little guidebook, as well as having information about the things that you're seeing. So galaxies and sunspots and all those kinds of things. There is information in here about them in really easily digestible chunks, which I deeply appreciated. The other thing that I really liked is at the end of each chapter, there are the top 5 tips or the top 5 facts that you need to know about what you've just read. So the things that you can take away and the things that you can do. So there's very much a little bit of a call to action in a way of, you know, engaging in this as a hobby, or later on, if you are so inclined, as a profession. So really gorgeous little book, and I'm looking forward to taking this into work now. Another physical book I read was Remembered by Heart by various authors, with a foreword by Sally Morgan. This book is interesting because it's actually a collection of personal histories by First Nations individuals. Some of these stories I've actually read because they actually come from other texts, and I've read them in other collections, particularly Sally Morgan's one. I've read that because it was in her memoir. But again, always very interesting. It can be confronting because we are talking about First Nations history here in Australia, which is incredibly fraught, a bit like our present day, but so important to read and to have an understanding and a perspective of our First Nations people, particularly as a white Australian. I need to understand our history better, and I do not get that from a white history lens. So this is all memories and history. The Aboriginal countries and identities within the text are varied, so we're not just focusing in on one particular part of the country. Our authors come from across the country. And I think, you know, what comes through really strongly, and it is mentioned in the blurb, is this sense of pride in their culture and in their family and their connections to the land. And I always appreciate having the opportunity to hear these stories or read these stories and to deepen my own understanding. And I think it's also really important because it highlights that no one experience is the same and that everyone's experiences are different and that we can unpack that. So a great little collection. Then finally, I read Bookish by Lucy Mangan, which I listened to as an audiobook, which was narrated by Lucy Mangan. And this is really a chronicle of Lucy's life as a bookworm. So it talks a lot about growing up and reading and how she engaged in reading, how she engaged with books, as well as, you know, unpacking why books are so important in our life and how they enrich our lives. It was a great listening experience. It was kind of just nice as a bookworm myself to hear someone else talk about their own experiences. And I mean, obviously being narrated by the author then deepens sort of that understanding of the text. Yeah, like for a shorter audiobook and one that I just kind of had on as I was doing chores and things like that, it was really interesting to hear about. And while I don't think I necessarily had any great revelations while listening to the book, it certainly reinforced a lot of my own beliefs and understandings about myself as a reader and how I engage with books and reading. So from that perspective, it was just kind of a nice listening experience, which can be just a good time. It was a very chill reading experience. So those are my last 5 nonfiction books. I will leave a list of all of them down below, so if you need to come back and find the list, you absolutely can. In the comments, I would love to know what was the last nonfiction book you read, or what is a nonfiction book you're looking forward to picking up in the future. If you just want to let me know that you're here but you don't leave a comment, feel free to leave a world emoji. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you're in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.